Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we start the reading of Ananda in the book, The Great Disciples of the Buddha. So this chapter is written by Hellmuth, and it starts with the title Ānanda Guardian of the Dhamma. So Venerable Ananda was well known to have very good memory. So he was the one who memorized all the discourses, all the teachings that the Buddha gave. And Venerable Ananda was also the Buddha's personal attendant. Now, actually, before Venerable Ananda, the Buddha had other attendants as well for short periods of time. But Venerable Ananda was the Buddha's personal attendant for the longest time until the Buddha's parinibbana. And because Venerable Ananda had this great ability to be able to remember the details of all the Buddha's teaching, there was one time the Buddha went out on invitation and gave a sermon to a group of people, and Venerable Ananda was not present there. So when the Buddha came back, Venerable Ananda requested the Buddha to repeat what were the teachings given when Venerable Ananda was not there. And the Buddha and Venerable Ananda also kind of requested the Buddha to promise him to do so anytime Venerable Ananda was not present when the Buddha gave teaching. So thanks to Venerable Ananda's efforts there, we have today the Tipitaka. If not because of Venerable Ananda and his efforts and his memory, his great memory, we would not have this Tipitaka, these teachings passed down. And that's why he is nicknamed here the guardian of the Dhamma, the guardian of the teachings. So he's the one that, because of him, because of his efforts, we have today, till today, the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha that is preserved. Okay, so let us start with this chapter called Ananda's Personal Path. So among all the great monks in the Buddha's retinue, the Venerable Ananda occupied a unique position. And this is many respects. Ananda's unique position had already begun even before his birth. So according to tradition, he came down to earth just as the Buddha did from the Tusita heaven, and was born on the same day as the Buddha and in the same caste, the warrior caste of the royal family of the Sakyans. So the Buddha, Gautama, came from a royal family, Sakyan family, but it's also a warrior caste. So it's not a Brahmin caste, it's a warrior caste. And so Ananda, who was the Buddha's cousin, was also born into the same warrior caste as Siddhartha, the Prince Siddhartha, the Bodhisattva. So Ananda's father, Amittodana, was the brother of Buddha's father, Suddhodana. And so Ananda and Prince Siddhartha, they too were cousins. Okay, and they grew up together in the Sakyans' capital city of Kapilavatthu. So Kapilavatthu was the kingdom was the capital city of the kingdom that King Suddhodana, Prince Siddhartha's father, had ruled over. Okay. Amittodana was also the father of Anuruddha. So Anuruddha is also, Venerable Anuruddha is also another senior disciple of the Buddha. Yeah. But probably through a different wife. So it seems like Anuruddha and Ananda may not be direct siblings. They could have been half brothers. And when Ananda was 37 years old, Ananda joined the Buddha's order of monks along with Anuruddha, Devadatta, and many other Sakyan nobles. So when the Buddha, after he gained enlightenment and then he started teaching, so he first started teaching to the 5 senior disciples in Deer Park. Yeah, and then subsequently he traveled and then he went back to Kapilavatthu, and there he managed to convert many of the royal family, his cousins and all that, to also take the robes. Okay, so amongst them was Ananda, Anuruddha, Devadatta as well, and many other Sakyan nobles. The Venerable Belatasisa, an Arhat, became his teacher and introduced him to the monks' discipline. So Venerable Ananda then was assigned a teacher who was already an Arhat. And Ananda proved himself a willing and diligent pupil. During his first rains retreat, he attained the fruit of stream entry. So even the first rains retreat already, Venerable Ananda stream entry, fruit of stream entry. And later he told his fellow monks that the Venerable Punya Mantani Putta, an outstanding exponent of the Dhamma, had been of great help to him during his training period. He had taught the Dhamma to the new monks and had given them a profound discourse on the relationship between the 5 aggregates and the idea I am. So this is in the Samyutta Nikaya. And as Ananda listened to Venerable Punya's words, he penetrated more and more deeply into the impermanence, suffering, and selfless nature of the 5 aggregates. Basically, the anicca, dukkha, anatta nature, impermanence, suffering, or unsatisfactoriness. And instead of the word selfless, usually we say, impersonal nature, anatta, impersonal nature of the 5 aggregates, the form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. And with the ripening of insight, he made the breakthrough to the path and fruit of stream entry. Ananda was always well contented with his life as a monk. He understood the blessings of renunciation and had entered upon the path to liberation, which is a joy to tread in the company of like-minded friends. And during the first years of his life as a monk, Ananda was fully occupied with the purification of his own mind, and he blended easily into the Sangha and slowly developed more and more resilience and mental strength. And when the Buddha and Ananda were both 55 years of age, the Buddha called a meeting of the monks and declared, "In my 20 years as leader of the Sangha, I've had many different attendants, but none of them had really filled the post perfectly. Again and again, some willfulness has become apparent. Now I'm 55 years old, and it's only necessary for me to have a trustworthy and reliable attendant." And at once all the noble disciples offered their services. Everybody wanted to be the Buddha's attendant, because when you're the Buddha's attendant, it's of great service that you are servicing the teacher, the Buddha. So it's like an honor, to be able to help or be of attend to your teacher. And it's the Buddha, right? So everybody offered, but the Buddha did not accept them. And then the great monks looked at Ananda, who had held back modestly, and asked him to volunteer. Due to his impeccable behavior as a monk, Ananda seemed predestined for the post. When he was asked why he was the only one who had not offered his services, he replied that the Buddha knew best who was suitable to his attendant. He had so much confidence in the Blessed One that it did not occur to him to express his own wishes, even though he would have liked to become the master's attendant. So even from the beginning, Venerable Ananda was he had such great faith in the Buddha that he felt, whoever the Buddha chose as attendant, that would be because the Buddha would know best. So he didn't even bother to raise his hand because of that. He had great faith in the Buddha. And then the Buddha declared that Ananda would be pleasing to him and would be the best choice for the post. And Ananda was in no way proud that the master had preferred him to the disciples, but instead he asked for 8 favors. So this is very interesting. Ananda wasn't like going, wow, above everyone else, the Buddha chose me. But instead, he asked the Buddha for 8 favors. If the Buddha chose him as his personal attendant, then please grant these 8 favors, he said. So the first 4 were negative in character. First, the master should never pass a gift of robes onto him. So Ananda said, okay, if anybody give set of robes to the Buddha must never pass it on to Venerable Ananda. Second, he should never give him any alms food which he himself had received. So first was the robes, the second was the food. Third, having received a dwelling place, he should never give it to him. So we have then any shelter that anybody offers to the Buddha, he is asking the Buddha, don't give it to him. And fourth, he should never include him in any personal invitations, such as an occasion for teaching the Dhamma when a meal would be offered. So what Venerable Ananda is trying to do, I think, is he probably was wary that, if he's a personal attendant, then there may be occasions that other people might start to develop sinister thoughts like, now Venerable Ananda is personal attendant to Buddha, so he has special privileges. So Ananda is very clear about that. He said, no, I don't want the Buddha to give me any clothing, robes, any alms food, any food, any shelter. And if anybody invites the Buddha on personal invitation, like, go to their house for dana and, teach there, don't include Venerable Ananda as well. So that is, I guess, Venerable Ananda's way of being very clear that, as the Buddha's personal attendant doesn't give him any special privileges. And the other 4 were positive. If he was invited to a meal and he asked for the right to transfer this invitation to Buddha. So if Venerable Ananda was invited to a meal, then Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, may you allow me to, instead of me going, I transfer the invitation to let the Buddha go instead. Okay. And if people came from outlying areas, he asked for the privilege to lead them to the Buddha. So it's saying if other people come from, outskirts or from far away, then Ananda is saying, let Venerable Ananda be able to lead those people to the Buddha, guide those people to the Buddha. And then if he had any doubts or inquiries about the Dhamma, he asked for the right to have them cleared up at any time. So here, Venerable Ananda is, interestingly, he is not asking for special privileges in terms of material things, but he is asking if he has any doubts, any questions about the Dhamma, he gets help quickly. He asks for a right to have them cleared. He gets help quickly, he says. So he wants, more important to Venerable Ananda, above all those material things or special privilege, he is very focused. It's to Venerable Ananda, it's about clearing any doubts about the Dhamma and help other people get Dhamma. And if the Buddha gave a discourse during his absence, he asked for the privilege to have it repeated to him privately. Yeah, and this is what we mentioned earlier. Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, okay, if sometimes you get invited somewhere, and because I don't want that I am also going to go, then when you come back, please repeat the teachings you gave. And because Venerable Ananda requested this and the Buddha granted, that is the reason why we have so much of discourses in the Tipitaka, because not in every discourse the Venerable Ananda was present. Those that, Venerable Ananda, most of them that Venerable Ananda was present, usually they start with "Thus have I heard," and that is actually the speech, from Venerable Ananda, how Venerable Ananda heard that discourse. Yeah. So Ananda explained that if he did not pose the first four conditions, then people could say he had accepted the post of attendant only with an eye on the material gains he would enjoy by living so close to the master. But if he did not express the other four conditions, then it could be rightly be said that he fulfilled the duties of his post without being mindful of his own advancement on the noble path. See, very interesting. So Venerable Ananda would say it was very clear. I want to make it clear that I'm accepting this post, not because I'm going to gain any material food, shelter, robes, whatever. But also, if I'm accepting this post, it's not because I'm going to neglect my own practice, my own progress on the Noble Eightfold Path. So that's why he requested, if he has any doubt, the Buddha, or he will ask the right for another teacher or the Buddha's guidance to clear the doubt. And the Buddha must repeat any teachings if Ananda wasn't present. So the Buddha granted him these very reasonable requests, which were quite in accordance with the Dhamma. And from then on, Ananda was the constant companion, attendant, and helper of the Blessed One for 25 years. And in those 25 years of service, he continued with the same incessant striving for purification as in the first 18 years of his monkhood, when he was an unknown disciple. And he said of himself, through the full 25 years that I have been in higher training, no sensual perception has arisen in me. See the excellence of the Dhamma. And through the full 25 years that I have been in higher training, no perception of hate has arisen in me. See the excellence of the Dhamma. So this is from the Thera Gatha. And the 25 years mentioned in this verse refer to the period during which he was the Buddha's attendant, and not to the whole of his life as a monk. And during this period, though he was still a learner, one in the higher training, no thoughts of lust or hate arose in him. The implication was that his close connection with the Buddha and his devotion to him gave no room for these. Only such a man could fill the post of a constant companion and attendant of the awakened one. Any questions so far? Pause here for now in case there's any questions or comments. No? Okay, we
Hello
have...
there. This
yes.
is Raj.
Hi, Raj.
I don't have a comment. I just have a question. Could you repeat the last 4 conditions, please?
Sure. Okay. So in summary, the last 4 conditions, I'll just go back to, let me see. Okay, here. All right. So the last 4 conditions, which were positive conditions. So if Venerable Ananda was invited to a meal, let's say somebody comes and go to the monastery and goes to Venerable Ananda and says, Venerable Ananda, I would like to invite you to my house for dana. Can you please come? Then Venerable Ananda said that he would like to have the right to, instead of Venerable Ananda go, he would like to transfer that invitation to the Buddha. So instead of Venerable Ananda, let the Buddha go. He wants the Buddha to give him that permission to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Then the second one is, if people came from outlying areas, so those days people, they could travel, and sometimes maybe they heard of the Buddha and his teachings, and they travel from far away or from the countryside to see the Buddha. Then Venerable Ananda says, Venerable Ananda wants to have the privilege. He wants to be the one that lead those people to the Buddha, guide them to the Buddha. He wants to have that privilege. Okay. Then the third one, he says, if Venerable Ananda, if he himself has any doubts, any questions about the Dhamma, he asks for the right to have them cleared up at any time. So he's saying, like, because I'm still not an arhat, but because I am also your attendant, which means I'm going to be very busy. However, I don't want to, just because I'm going to be very busy, I'm forgetting about my own practice. So if I have any question, any doubt about my practice, I want it to be, he didn't say the Buddha must clear up the doubt. He just says he wants the right to have them cleared. So it can be any other teacher, arhat, that the Buddha says or whatever. And at some point in the scriptures, Venerable Sariputta played a key role to guide Venerable Ananda. Venerable Sariputta gave a lot of advice and teachings to Venerable Ananda. And in the previous chapter, when we read about Venerable Maha Kassapa, although they didn't have a lot of conversations, it seems, but because Mahakassapa's style, Mahakassapa's style of living, style of teaching is very disciplined, very, we must practice with a lot of effort like that. And so sometimes when Mahakassapa sees Venerable Ananda, because Venerable Ananda's character, you see, his style is very soft. He's very gentle, see? And that also makes Venerable Ananda very approachable. People like him, because he's soft, he's gentle. So sometimes Venerable Ananda, because of his character, he may not make the most wisest of decisions when it comes to leading the Sangha. And so Mahakassapas that, sometimes will come to Venerable Ananda and say, Venerable Ananda, if you do it like this, if you lead like this, it's not going to be good. Yeah, people are going to have misconceptions. Blah, blah, blah. So Venerable Ananda had a lot of support. And the last one says, if the Buddha gave a discourse during Venerable Ananda's absence, he asked for the privilege to have it repeated to him privately. That's right. And the Buddha did that. Yes, the Buddha did that. So that's why we have the big volume of Tipitaka. So in the Tipitaka, there were many instances where Venerable Ananda was not present. But then when the Buddha came back to the monastery, the Buddha promised, the Buddha will repeat what happened to Ananda.
Very nice.
Yeah.
If I may ask another question.
Sure.
In the first four, the Venerable Ananda says that, I'm referring to the point about the meals. In the first four, he says that the Buddha will not ever give him the alms, the meals that he receives from someone else. And in the last four, he says that whenever I am offered a meal by someone, I reserve the right to offer it to the Buddha. So
That's right.
was the Venerable Ananda giving up on food, on meals? Was he in a different state of mind that food was no longer important for his body? I mean,
No, no,
you know?
no. No, 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 not like that at all. Not like that at all. So, in terms of what it's trying to say is, so if let's say a devotee comes to the monastery,
Mm,
and then usually they will say, okay, they want to invite the Buddha for dana at their home.
mm,
Then what Venerable Ananda is saying is, Venerable Ananda doesn't want to go together.
mm.
Because you
Oh, not go
usually
together. Okay,
go
okay.
together with the Buddha. So Venerable
Ah,
Ananda is saying, okay, Buddha, you go, but I'm not
mm,
going to come with you. Okay. And
okay.
why Venerable Ananda do it like that? Because he doesn't want people to start thinking, oh, now Venerable Ananda is personal attendant. So, when people invite the Buddha for dana at their home, they will prepare, fancy meal and, lots of things for the Buddha. You can imagine, right? Because
Correct.
imagine the Buddha come to your home. Of course, you will prepare the great, probably the best type of food and everything, right? So
Correct.
Venerable Ananda is saying, I'm not going to join because Venerable
And
Ananda doesn't want people. Of course, Venerable Ananda don't have that want, but he doesn't want to have other people even think about. Oh, see, Venerable Ananda became the Buddha's attendant. Since then, he also get all these fancy meals. You see what I mean? No, he
yes,
doesn't want that to happen at all. That's all.
I understand.
Uh,
The thought that came to me around this was, maybe the Venerable Ananda had so much love for Gautam Buddha, for Lord Buddha, that he knew that whenever food or alms will be offered to the Buddha being the Buddha will not take them and want to give them to other people. And it's possible that Venerable Anand has so much love for Buddha that he wants his Buddha to also eat, to also have his container nourished. And that's why, to prevent the Buddha from giving the food to anyone else, he put the condition that, no, I want you to eat also, my dear Lord. That's the idea that came.
that one I'm not sure, but usually I don't try to interpret too much,
Correct. Correct.
just to keep it simple.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
That's nice. These are amazing conditions for a mind to be able to come up with ideas like these. I think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
wonderful. It's learning for me. So I
It
thank you
is
for this.
learning. It is. And we have so much to be grateful to Venerable Ananda because if not because of Venerable Ananda, we have probably no access to so much
Correct,
of teachings in the Tripitaka. It's because of him. We are so indebted to him.
correct. Yes,
Mhm.
I understand. Thank you for your time. Please carry on.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Of
Okay,
course.
so now we continue just a little bit more since we have a little bit of time. So Ananda's renown. So Ananda was a very popular character, even though he was not an arhat until the first council after the Buddha passed away. So Ananda's praise had been voiced on many occasions in the Pali Canon. Once, for example, King Pasenadi of Kosala. So there were two kings during the time of the Buddha that were strong supporters of the Buddha. One was King Pasenadi, and the other was King Bimbisara. And they were rulers of different, you can think of it, countries. Yeah. So King Pasenadi ruled Kosala, and King Bimbisara ruled Magadha. So King Pasenadi of Kosala had met the Venerable Ananda and had inquired from him about the criteria of proper conduct in body, speech, and mind. Proper conduct means the sila, the precepts. Yeah. But if you want to think of it further, the proper conduct in body, speech, and mind, those of you who are interested, last Sunday we had Brother Sachinji guide us through the Noble Eightfold Path. So we had a good conversation and good teachings there. And I think the recording is on the YouTube channel, Samatha Vipassana Trust YouTube channel. So feel free to check that one out. So there we went through the Noble Eightfold Path, and we talked about the Sila as well for body, speech, and mind. So Venerable Ananda answered the excuse me, answered the king's questions with his usual perspicacity. Oh my goodness, that's another word that I need to learn. In case Pai or Paul, you know a bit about that word, do share. But I think what it really is trying to say is Ananda was very good in answering King Pasenadi's questions. And the king was so delighted that he bestowed upon Venerable Ananda a costly, a very expensive garment, piece of cloth. And later, Ananda reported his meeting to the Blessed One, to the Buddha, who then addressed the entire assembly of monks and said, "It is a gain for King Pasenadi of Kosala monks. It is fortunate for King Pasenadi of Kosala that he had gained the opportunity to see Ananda and to offer him service." So this was from the Majjhima Nikaya number 88. So what the Buddha is saying is not that, oh, Venerable Ananda gained because Venerable Ananda got the offer of the expensive garment, but it's actually King Pasenadi who gained, because it was King Pasenadi who learned the teachings from Venerable Ananda and got the opportunity to offer something to Venerable Ananda. So see, interesting how the Buddha teaches us how to think differently. And Ananda was so capable as a teacher of Dhamma that the Buddha did not hesitate to ask him to take his place when he himself was not feeling fit. So towards the later part of the Buddha's life, sometimes he was sometimes quite ill. Yeah. And this happened among the Buddha's own relations, the Sakyans. So the Buddha, Gautama, came from the warrior caste of the Sakyans, and he had many different relations, big family, right, at Kapilabhatu. And when the Sakyans were about to open a new rest house, they invited the Buddha and his monks to spend the first night there in order to bestow their blessings upon the place. So it's quite common, you know, you buy a new house or you have a new building, even till today, not necessarily have the monks spend the night, but even till today, it's still very common, you know, you move into a new house, you want to invite the venerables to come and do some ceremony, do some blessings, and then you offer dana. Even till today, it's a common practice. So after the assembly had gathered, the Buddha spoke for much of the night, but then he turned to the Venerable Ananda and said, "Speak to the Sakyans, Ananda, about the disciple in higher training who is practicing the path. My back is aching and I need to stretch myself." So towards the later part of the Buddha's life, quite often he would have very bad back. And this is said to be attributed to, in one of the Buddha's previous life, he was a kind of a wrestler, like, you know, someone who does wrestling. and he was very good at wrestling, but also very vicious. That was one of the previous life, probably many lives ago. He used to defeat his wrestling opponents by really breaking their backs. Really bad way of winning those fights. But he did that, and because of that, even the Buddha could not escape the effect of that coming back to him. Sorry, I see something in the chat. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Paul's just shared a free PDF copy. Those of you who are interested, you can download from the internet. Thanks to the Buddhist Publication Society in Kandy, we have this. Okay, so yeah, so when the Buddha was having a really bad back, sometimes he would say, okay, Venerable Ananda, you go and teach. I have to lie down. And this was one instance. So then Ananda then proceeded to give a detailed sermon on the entire practice of the trainee, from the basic precepts of morality through to the final knowledge of arhatship. And when he had finished, the Buddha rose and said, "Excellent, Ananda, excellent. You have given an excellent talk to the Sakyans on the disciple in higher training." And on several occasions, the Buddha was not present when Ananda spoke. And it was his custom at times to utter a very brief, compressed statement of Dhamma to the monks, and then rise and enter his dwelling as though he was challenging the monks to tease out the meaning of his words on their own. Quite common. When we were reading Majjhima Nikaya, there were a few instances. Buddha says something based on something that happened, or somebody asked a question. Buddha says just a couple of brief statements. Then Buddha waits for a while. Nobody asks any questions. He gets up and he goes into his dwelling place. And then everybody's sitting there going, what just happened? So very common. And usually they will ask Venerable Mahakachana, who, if he is in the audience, they will ask Venerable Mahakachana. Okay, very funny, interesting. So it's also a lesson to us sometimes, if ever we're in a talk, nowadays I try to remind myself, even if I'm in a work meeting or attending an event, take down lots of notes, listen very carefully, take down lots of notes. And the moment I have the opportunity, don't miss the opportunity to ask a question. And nowadays, in a way, I press my music students as well. Ask questions. This is your opportunity to learn. Once you miss the opportunity, that's it. It's gone. Yeah. So yeah. So on such occasions, the monks would approach a learned elder to explain the Buddha's enigmatic utterance at length. And usually they would turn to Venerable Mahakachana, the chief expositor of brief statements. But when Venerable Mahakachana is not in residence, then they would turn to Ananda, for the Venerable Ananda is praised by the teacher and by his wise companions in the holy life. And Venerable Ananda would then give a full explanation of the Buddha's brief statement, after which the Buddha would report his words. After which the monk would report Venerable Ananda's words to Buddha, and invariably the Buddha would declare, "Ananda, monks, is wise, one of great understanding." If you had questioned me about this matter, I would have answered this very same way that Ananda had answered. And that is the meaning. And so you should bear it in mind. So great was Ananda's mastery of the Dhamma that the Buddha even spoke of him as a living embodiment of the teaching. Once, a lay disciple asked the Buddha how, after he had honored the teacher and the Sangha, he could honor the Dhamma. And this is an age before the Dhamma was transcribed in books. Yes, so it was only much later, probably during King Asoka's time, or a little bit later, I think, that the Dhamma, the teachings, the Tipitaka was written onto ola leaves. But before that, for many hundreds of years, it was passed down through oral tradition. Nothing is written, no books. Nothing is written. Everything is passed down through oral tradition. So different schools memorize the teaching. So there's one school that memorized Digha Nikaya, one school that memorized Majjhima Nikaya, one school that memorized Samyutta Nikaya, and each of the school they had a leader, and they passed down generation after generation by reciting. So that's what's called oral tradition, by reciting, by passing down generation after generation, the lineage. That's how it was done for many hundreds of years until it was finally written in ola leaves. Yeah. So the lay disciple asked, okay, so can we honor the teacher, the Buddha, and we honor the Sangha? How can we honor the Dhamma? Because that time, no books. Then the Buddha replied, if you wish to honor the Dhamma householder, go and honor Ananda, the guardian of the Dhamma. So that's very interesting statement that the Buddha mentioned. Ananda is the guardian of the Dhamma. You want to honor the Dhamma, honor Ananda. He's the guardian. So thereupon the lay disciple invited Ananda to a meal and gave him a gift of valuable cloth. And Ananda offered this valuable cloth to Sariputta, who in turn gave it to the Buddha, for he alone was the cause of all bliss. So beautiful, right? Then another time, after Ananda had answered the question of the Buddha and had left, the Buddha told the other monks, Ananda is still one on the path of higher training. Yet, it is not easy to find one who equals him fully in wisdom. And shortly before his parinibbana, the Buddha said, just as the multitude of nobles, Brahmins, ordinary folk, ascetics, find joy in seeing a world monarch, equally joyful are the monks, nuns, male and female disciples. They're equally joyful about seeing Ananda. If a party of these go to see Ananda, his presence alone gives them joy. And when he speaks on the Dhamma to them, there will be joy for them because of his words. And they are still not satisfied when Ananda reverts to silence. So Ananda was very popular. He was very popular. He was very, maybe in a way, Ananda's character, his demeanor, very soft-spoken, very gentle, very kind, very thoughtful, yeah, very caring. Maybe because of that, it's like it would be difficult for anyone not to like Ananda, let's say, yeah. And his amazing memory, yeah, that makes him so honored and respected. And in view of this abundance of praise, honor, and recognition, mutterings of envy and resentment against Ananda could have been expected, but this was not the case at all. For Ananda was a man without enemies. This rare fortune had not come to him by chance, but had been enjoyed by him in many previous existences as well. So in many previous lives, Ananda was also well liked. Ananda had subordinated his life to the Dhamma so completely that fame could not touch him and make him proud. So never once was he like, oh, walking around going, you know, I'm now personal attendant of the Buddha, you know, I have direct access to the Buddha, you know. Most people, most of us will unintentionally sometimes start thinking like that. He never thought like that. He was completely, you know, devoted to the Dhamma, the teaching, the practice, and of course, attending to the Buddha's needs. And he knew that all that was good in him was due to the influence of the teaching. And with such an attitude, there was no scope in his mind for pride and complacency. One who is not proud has no enemies, and such a one does not meet with envy. And if someone turns completely inward and shuns social contact, as Ananda's half-brother Anuruddha did, then it is easy to be without enemies. But Ananda, the intermediary between the Buddha and his many devotees, constantly exposed himself to the malice and resentment of the captious-minded. as a sheer fact that Ananda lived without enemies, without rivals, without conflict, tension, borders on miracle. And this quality is truly a measure of Ananda's uniqueness. So really, he was well liked, didn't have any enemies, didn't have any malice, was not proud. So his character was really quite amazing, yeah, admirable. And although Ananda did experience justified criticism and was occasionally admonished, that was something entirely different. So we did read in the last chapter with Mahakassapa sometimes would admonish Ananda, say, I don't think that's the right thing to do. But it was different. It was more a friendly advice. Yeah. So a friendly reminder, a warning, even a substantial reproach to change one's behavior are aids toward more intense purification. Such criticism, if taken to heart, leads to more inner clarity and higher esteem by others. But the instances in which Ananda was admonished mostly referred to points of social behavior or to the minutiae of the Vinaya, the monk's discipline. So usually when Ananda was admonished, it was more about the finer details of the Vinaya, the precepts that the monks and the nuns had to keep. Hardly ever did they touch on matters of self-purification, never on his understanding of the Dhamma. And the instances were as follows. Once, when the Buddha was suffering from wind in his stomach, Ananda cooked rice gruel for him, which had been beneficial when he himself had earlier suffered from this ailment. And the Buddha admonished him, it's not proper for ascetics to prepare meals in the house. And after this incident, it was decreed an offense for a monk to cook for himself. So Ananda adhered to this rule from then on with full insight into its necessity as part of true homelessness. So once Ananda went on alms round without his double robe. And so usually they have, and when monks go on alms round, they need to put on the full robe. And fellow monks drew his attention to the rule established by the Buddha that a monk should always wear his 3 robes when going to the village. And Ananda agreed wholeheartedly and explained that he had simply forgotten it. Since this and the former case concerned a simple disciplinary rule, the matter was thereby settled. That someone like Ananda, who had a most extraordinary memory, could also forget something was due to the fact that even a stream enterer is not yet perfect. The Buddha, however, required of the monks that they pay diligent attention to the small, everyday details of a monk's life, and that they base their higher spiritual exertions on the foundation of this discipline. This served to eliminate purely intellectual understanding and conceit. So this is very interesting here that in the beginning, early days of the Buddha's teaching, or the early days of when Sangha was set up, the Vinaya rules weren't to a lot of detail. But it was also because at the time that there were more arhats. And then slowly as the teaching, the Sangha grew, then there were other monks that joined in, and not every monk was an arahat. And so then, there needed to be even the minute details on the disciplines that the Vinaya that the monks and nuns had to keep. And here it's saying like, well, the reason for these is to eliminate intellectual understanding. So like in case, some of the monks, maybe they're not yet enlightened, but they think very highly of themselves just because, I'm in the company of the Buddha, or I'm part of the Sangha, or I have X number of years of rains retreat, or whatever it is. So with these Vinaya, it's meant to hopefully curb that kind of conceit, that kind of pride. Yeah, because pride is one of the hindrances that is only really fully, truly uprooted in the final stages of pursuing the path towards arahatship. I think somewhere around anagami stage or something, or maybe if I could be wrong, but I think only attaining the fruit of anagami that the pride is uprooted. But I could be wrong. Yeah, I have to check. So pride is something that's very tricky and sneaks upon us if we're not careful. So that's why the Vinaya is there for that. So a different kind of criticism was leveled at Ananda in two instances by our Venerable Mahakassapa. And once Ananda had asked Mahakassapa to accompany him to a nunnery in order to give a discourse to the nuns. And after initial hesitation, Mahakassapa agreed. And when the discourse was over, a headstrong nun blamed Mahakassapa for doing all the talking without letting the wise Ananda utter a single word. It was, she said, as if a needle peddler was trying to sell his wares in the presence of a needle maker. Ooh. So the nun was very strong in accusing that, or it's like, Ananda is the real thing and Mahakassapa is the fake one, but Mahakassapa is the one, not the fake one, but, Mahakassapa is not the one that makes the real stuff. He's just the one that's selling. So how come Ananda is not the one that's speaking? That's a very strong accusation for the nun to say like that in public. So Ananda begged Mahakassapa to forgive her, but Mahakassapa replied that Ananda should show restraint, lest the Sangha should initiate an inquiry into his behavior. Oh. So what happened was when the nun stood up, said like that, and accused Mahakassapa like that, because of Ananda's nature, Ananda immediately said, oh, Mahakassapa, you know what? She misunderstood. She's not wise. Just forgive her. Just let it go. But then Mahakassapa said, no, if you do like that, then you may risk somebody in the Sangha to say, how come Ananda is so lax to say, let her be or forgive her? So Mahakassapa is giving a kind of a warning to Venerable Ananda and say, we shouldn't do that. Because then it can lead to inquiry into your behavior. Then you are being questioned instead. And that's not good for you. So then Mahakassapa intended this reproach to be a reminder to Ananda that in his zeal for teaching the nuns, he had overlooked the danger of personal attachment. And this criticism was no doubt of benefit to Ananda in the future. So Mahakassapa did that for the benefit of everyone. For Ananda, for the nun, and for the whole Sangha. So he's also trying to remind Ananda, yes, you are so, because of your passion for teaching and your compassion for the nuns, yes, I understand you want to teach them. You want to, but in that state of mind when you're so caught up with wanting to teach and your compassion, you might overlook the danger that we start to get attached to individuals. And that is not good for a teacher.
So please tell us, how do you think Ananda should have behaved in this scenario? And what did Kassapa say to that nun who made a comment like that?
I don't know if, let me see if we go back to Mahakassapa. I don't know if it's the same nun, but we can go back to, so also, you can also refer to there's a recording on Mahakassapa's, let me see, where was it? Relations with fellow monks. So, let me see. Oops. Okay, so we can read through this, but it's also in the recording from one of the previous weeks on Mahakassapa's relationship with other fellow Sangha members. So on this occasion, so it's related to the Samyutta Nikaya 16.10. Ananda asked Kaspar to accompany him to the nuns' quarters. Kaspar, however, refused and asked Ananda to go alone. But Ananda seemed to be intent on getting Mahakaspar to give a Dhamma talk to the nuns. He repeated his request twice. So then Mahakaspar finally consented and went along. And the result, however, turned out to be quite different from what Ananda had expected. After the discourse, one of the nuns, Tulatissa by name, raised her voice to make a rather offensive remark. How could Master Kassapa presume to speak on the Dhamma in the presence of Master Ananda, the learned sage? This is as if a needle peddler wanted to sell a needle to the needle maker. And obviously this nun preferred the gentle preaching of Ananda's to Kaspar's stern and sometimes critical approach, which may have touched on her own weakness. So we have read, different styles in living, practicing, and teaching. Ananda's style is more gentle, more, soft-spoken. Mahakassapa's style is strict. Even how Mahakassapa himself lived and practiced, very strict, austere. Nobody else practiced like him. But that is his character, that is also his strength, and because he believes the practice like that should be like that, strict discipline, then when he delivers the teachings, of course, naturally he would expect other Sangha members to practice like that. And Tulatissa probably doesn't like that kind of style, maybe, yeah? Yeah, so when Kassapa heard the nun's remarks, he asked Ananda, how is it, friend Ananda? Am I the needle peddler and you the needle maker? Or am I the needle maker and you the needle peddler? Then Ananda replied, be indulgent, Venerable Sir. She's a foolish woman. So Ananda is saying, let her be, she's foolish. Doesn't matter, right? But Mahakassapa doesn't let it drop. Mahakassapa says, beware, friend Ananda, or else the Sangha may further investigate you. How is it, friend Ananda? Was it you whom the Buddha extolled in the presence of the Sangha, saying, I, O monks, can attain at the will the four fine material and immaterial meditative absorptions, jhanas, the cessation of perception, feeling, the six supernormal knowledges, and Ananda too can also attain? So Venerable Mahakassapa is really questioning Ananda now. Are you saying that you can do what the Buddha can do? Then Ananda said, no, Venerable Sir. Or did the Buddha say, Kassapa too can also attain that? So very clear, Mahakassapa is not saying from the point of, I'm greater than you, because I can do what the Buddha do. That's not what Mahakassapa is trying to say. What Mahakassapa is trying to say is he's trying to state the facts. Because this is not a private setting between the two of them. This is a setting of teaching the Sangha, the nuns, in the nunnery. So there are a lot of people present. So from Mahakassapa's point of view, facts must be set right. Just because somebody stands up because she doesn't like the way style of how Mahakassapa should not give rise to doubt in other people. Does that make sense? So if the setting was, let's say, just a conversation between Mahakassapa, Venerable Ananda, and maybe the nun Tulatissa, that's a different thing. But this is in a general assembly where the teachings, the Dhamma is being taught by Mahakassapa in front of the Sangha, in front of. So he's very careful. From Mahakassapa's point of view, he's very careful. Everybody here, this is a public, yeah? even if people don't talk, we have to be careful with their minds as well. What are they going to think? If we don't say anything about what Tulatissa said, then that means we are consenting. You know, it's like silence sometimes. By not saying anything, it also means you're agreeing. Or even if you don't agree, you give the impression that you agree with Tulatissa.
Okay.
So that's
okay. I understand.
okay.
I'm curious to know, what did Kassapa say to the nun in this scenario? Do you know?
So we can read, let me see, from the above account, we can see that I think it didn't say much. I don't think Mahakassapa said anything directly to Tulatissa, or at least it didn't. There were no details about that. He just said, you know, beware, Ananda, or else the Sangha may investigate you. Then when immediately after, Kassapa stressed that it was his own meditative attainments that the Buddha had extolled and not Ananda's. This may be taken as pointing to the far different spiritual status of the two elders, and it may have served as a spur to Ananda to strive for those attainments. The nun Tulatissa, however, left the order. She left the Sangha. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm taking your time. One more question, please.
Yes.
In a scenario like this, how should we ideally respond? If we were in that position and someone points to us like this, are we the needle maker or the needle peddler? What should be a good way to respond? Any thoughts? Anyone? Teacher?
So it depends. Okay. There is no right or wrong. So every situation, this is again my own personal, yeah.
Yes,
so it's situation based. Depending on the situation at that point in time, we have to use our wisdom and compassion to decide how we want to not react, but respond. This is a very good question, by the way, because we will always encounter very similar kind of scenarios in our daily life.
Correct.
That is, you know, we will see somebody saying something and we will feel like it's not right, or it may it may set a wrong precedence down the road, or you know, but then I do that. I experience that a lot. We may start to think, oh, but if I say something, will I be prejudiced? Will I get into trouble because I said something? And this is a very common situation in the workplace, for example, where let's say we are not the boss, we are reporting to someone, but we see certain practices in the workplace that we feel is not ethical. So what do we do?
What do we do? Yeah.
Do we say something? Yeah, or do we keep quiet, right? Now, there is no, in my humble opinion, there is no clear-cut answer because every situation is different, and the players in every situation, yeah, the so-called people in that scenario is always different. Also, one thing I always remind myself again and again and again is what we see or perceive usually is not the full story. Usually.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. What we see is just usually the tip of the iceberg. So the iceberg, usually what we see on the top is only about 10%. But the other 90% of the scenario is submerged under the water, which nobody can see. And that is actually the bigger part of the problem. And that is why human communication is so complicated. It is so interesting, but yet so complicated. And sometimes we almost feel like, oh, I have to, you know, the saying, I have to walk on eggshells. Sometimes we almost feel like that, right?
Yeah.
So in those instances, I always feel Again, coming to the teachings of the Buddha, yeah. And what are the teachings of the Buddha? Very simple. The three characteristics we just read: anicca, impermanent; dukkha means unsatisfactory; and anatta, impersonal anyway. So if we remind ourselves in any scenario like that, we remind ourselves that anyhow, whether we like it or not, the situation will change.
Right.
Yeah, whether it's a difficult situation or whether it's a happy situation, irregardless any type of emotions or feeling, it will change. That's the first thing. The second thing is the dukkha, unsatisfactory. No matter what it is, it will be unsatisfactory anyway. Okay. Or it may be satisfactory to one party, but it will be unsatisfactory to another party. Or to some people will like it and some people will hate it. And that is because it is dukkha. It is like that. And that is also because it's due to the way this human, what's the word, psychophysical, I can't remember the word now. It is how our body and mind work. And this goes to the bigger topic on the dependent origination. The dependent origination is like the framework of how this entire system works. And because of that framework, naturally we have dukkha, we have unsatisfactoriness, or we have somebody will like it, somebody will hate it, somebody will have no reaction to it.
No reaction.
It's because of dependent origination. And then we have anatta, impersonal nature. So if we start to see, okay, if let's say there is an argument, yeah, or there is an accusation or whatever, if we can step back, and Venerable Sister Kema used to say, you know, one of her students was practicing very diligently, you know, loving kindness 6 hours. And one day, her student came down. So I think it was maybe a double-story house. One day, she came down from upstairs to downstairs to the living room, where I think there was some kind of hoo-ha or argument or some kind of drama going on in the family, yeah? And all of a sudden, the student's mind was not thinking about, oh my goodness, what is happening? No. But because she was practicing and practicing, when she witnessed that scenario, to the student, it was like watching a drama unfold, you know, like watching TV unfold. There was no attachment to, oh yeah, I think she's right, or no, he's wrong, or no, you know, it was just naturally just seeing the whole, like literally in her words, like I'm watching a drama. But I have no I'm not attached to anything of the drama. I'm not part of it. I'm just a spectator of the drama unfold. And after the drama is done, then you know, anicca, right? It will change, you see. So if we can practice our loving kindness, and even if at that moment we can't even try loving kindness, the least we can do is smile. The least we can do is smile, because when we smile, in an instant, the energy change. Even if other people's energy don't change, our energy change.
You're right, teacher. I think you gave me the answer. This is what Kassapa must have done when he heard that question 2009. He must have looked at her and smiled.
Sorry, your sound is not very clear, so I didn't quite catch that. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I said, I hear you, teacher, and I'm very thankful for your answer. And I think this is the answer I was looking for. This is what Kassapa must have done. He must have looked at the nun and smiled, changed the energy. So this is a very good answer. Thank you.
Whether Mahakassapa looked at the nun and smiled or not, I don't know, but she left the Sangha, unfortunately, to her, so, and it's, we look at Tulatissa and maybe we can think very simply and go, oh, how could she have left it, But how do we know that we didn't do that in the past?
Correct. We must
Right.
have. You're right.
Maybe, who
Thank you,
knows?
teacher.
Nobody knows. Yeah. But what's important is not what happened in the past. What is important is the present. What are we doing now with our practice? Because whatever we do now will influence what is to come.
What is to come? Yes. Thank you, teacher. Someone else had raised their hand in the chat. Maybe they have a question, teacher. Please have a look.
Oh, okay. By the way, I'm not a twim guy, but I try to share my best what I learned from.
You're doing a very good job. Very good job. Thank you, teacher.
Well, I'm glad that helped to a certain extent, hopefully. So if there are no other questions, let's see how. I'm not sure if this is taking a lot of time with other people, but feel free to, if you have other things. Let me see, where did we go back to? Oh, before Ananda. We'll try to finish just to wrap up that chapter on Ananda. Oops. Where were we up before? Oh, yeah, okay. So Tulatissa, okay. Okay, then the second incident occurred soon after the Buddha's demise, after the Buddha passed away, when 30 disciples of Ananda had left the Sangha. Oh, so Kassapa reproached Ananda for not guarding the young men sufficiently. He had gone on walking tours with them while they were still unrestrained in the senses, immoderate in the eating, and not devoted to wakefulness, means mindfulness. And therefore, he was a trampler of the corn, spoiler of families, whose followers are breaking away. Oh, so Mahakassapa was quite harsh. And finally, Mahakassapa said, this youngster truly does not know his own measure. Because Ananda was also training some young monks. And Mahakassapa was, in this case, very harsh. So to this rather strong reproach, Ananda only replied that gray hair had grown on his head, yet Kassapa still called him a youngster. And it may be that in this case, Ananda had overrated his own strength and underrated the worldliness of his pupils. Ananda did not argue about the objective justification of the censure. After all, he was not yet an arhat and was still subject to some defilements. He only objected to the generalization implied in the criticism. One may, however, assume that an arhat like Mahakassapa would have known which form of criticism would be most helpful to Ananda. In any case, Mahakassapa blamed Ananda in both instances because of his love for him. That is true. If Mahakassapa didn't have love for Venerable Ananda, he wouldn't have said anything. He wouldn't have done any action at all. But it's because of his compassion for Venerable Ananda and the Sangha. And that's why in these two examples, Mahakassapa took action like that. Yeah. And there was always an excellent relationship between these two monks. Another monk, Udayi, once criticized Ananda in the following way. Ananda had asked the Blessed One how far Buddha's voice would reach in the universe. And the Lord had answered that the enlightened ones were immeasurable and could reach further than 1,000-fold world systems with 1,000 suns, 1,000 heavens, 1,000 Brahma worlds, even further than a 3,000-fold world system. And they could penetrate all those worlds with their shining splendor and reach all beings living there with their voice. And Ananda was delighted with this description, so all-encompassing, transcending all horizons. He exclaimed, how fortunate I am that I have such an almighty, powerful master. Then Udayi objected, what good does it do to you, friend Ananda, that your master is almighty and powerful? with these few words of strong reproach was uttered that Ananda always looked at the person of the Buddha only, thereby forgot his real benefit, his own enlightenment. So Udayi was in a way correct. Udayi was saying, so what? If the Buddha is so powerful, so almighty, how does that benefit you or your practice? And then the Buddha immediately took sides with Ananda, saying, not so, Udayi, not so. Should Ananda die without being fully liberated, because of the purity of his heart, he would be king of the gods 7 times or king of the Indian subcontinent 7 times. But Udayi, Ananda will experience final liberation in this very life. That's what the Buddha said. That the Buddha made this prophecy in Ananda's presence showed his confidence in him. He knew that his wide knowledge of the Buddha's word would not make Ananda negligent in his practice. And this utterance also indicated that the Buddha found it useful to shield Ananda from reproach, self-inflicted and by others, by consoling him that his effort and striving would result in the highest attainment in this very lifetime. And the Tathagata could make such a declaration only in the case of one who tended to be extremely conscientious rather than too negligent. So the Buddha also knows. That's why we always see in the discourse, sometimes people get confused, how come in this instance the Buddha says, answer the same question like that to so-and-so, but in another instance, the Buddha answered like that to so-and-so. And people get confused. It's because the Buddha has the wisdom to see different characters. What is the correct way to teach so that it will click with them? And because Ananda is one who is very diligent in his practice and sometimes probably more self-conscious than other people, the Buddha is kind of concerned that, for such a character, if other people keep reproaching him, then Ananda might start to lose confidence of himself. Okay. The only time that the Buddha admonished Ananda on his own accord was also the most important. The Buddha had instructed Ananda to oversee the distribution of cloth or robes to the monks, and Ananda had accomplished this task very satisfactorily. The Buddha praised him for his circumspection and told the other monks that Ananda was very skilled in sewing. He was able to make several different kinds of seams. For a good monk, it was necessary that he hemmed his robes so that they did not fray at the edges, and one could not accuse him of carelessly handling and wasting offerings of the laity. Later, when the Buddha was residing near his hometown, he saw numerous seats prepared in a monastery and asked Ananda whether many monks lived there. And Ananda confirmed this and added, "It is now time to prepare our robes, Lord." Ananda referred here to the Buddha's instruction that a monk should care for his robes properly. However, Ananda seemed to have arranged a sort of sewing circle, perhaps to teach his fellow monks the commended art of making seams. This was probably how it came to be a communal evening sewing hour. Ananda had not considered that this would turn into a home-like conversational hour during which the monks would indulge in frivolous chatter. And therefore, the Buddha gave this very emphatic injunction concerning the danger of mundane gregariousness for a monk. A monk does not deserve praise who enjoys socializing, who finds joy in fellowship, finds contentment in it, enjoys togetherness, is pleased with it. That such a monk should attain at will the bliss of renunciation, the bliss of solitude, the bliss of tranquility, the bliss of awakening in their totality, that is impossible. Whoever finds his whole happiness in togetherness has no access to the bliss that can only be won in seclusion. Even if such a person attains meditative absorption, that attainment will be fragile, easily shaken and lost. For a person who relishes companionship, it will be still more difficult to attain final liberation. Therefore, the Buddha ends his admonition with the statement that he cannot find any object of attachment that does not produce suffering because of its inherent impermanence. This is the universal aspect of the Dhamma. Subsequently, the Buddha expounded the path of practice, which he explained solely with reference to Ananda. Because Ananda had the faculty of deep meditation, the Buddha did not mention the first 7 steps of the Noble Eightfold Path, but started with the 8th step, right concentration, or right harmonious collectedness. Yeah, we talked about that last week. He expounded here the highest goal, total voidness of concepts, objects, and names, and stressed that this goal could be attained only by one who strives to master the mind in solitude. And furthermore, he appealed to Ananda's love for him as the master, emphasized that this love could only be proven if Ananda followed him into the highest attainment. One could say that he made use of both approaches, factual and personal, to help Ananda cut off all remaining worldliness once and for all. And he concluded with this analogy. Therefore, Ananda, bear amity towards me, not hostility. Long shall that be for your benefit and happiness. I shall not treat you, Ananda, as the potter treats his unfired pots, repeatedly admonishing. I shall speak to you, Ananda, repeatedly testing. He who is sound will stand the test. Let's see if this is going much further. Oh, not much further. Okay, so we just finish the last 2 paragraphs, if that's okay. This analogy will be easier to understand if one takes a look at the Gandhara Jataka, which tells of a past life of Ananda. He had been a king who abdicated his throne to become an ascetic, and the Bodhisattva too had done the same. On one day, it transpired that the first ascetic, the future Ananda, had a small store of salt to flavor his food, which went against the ascetic rule of poverty. And the Bodhisattva reprimanded him thus: you have let go of all the riches of your kingdom, and now you have started to store provisions again. And the ascetic became ill-humored because of that. He replied that one must not hurt the other person when reprimanding him. One must not be rough with one's reproach, as if cutting with a blunt knife. And the Bodhisattva replied, among friends, it isn't necessary to speak like a potter handling his unfired, very delicate pots. A friend can also utter words of blame, because only through repeated exhortation and constant constructive criticism can one give a person the solidity of fired clay. That means well-made clay. Then the ascetic asked the Bodhisattva's pardon and requested that the Bodhisattva should, out of compassion, always guide him further. The analogy of the clay pots, easily understandable in those days when pottery was a common trade, referred to sensitivity and touchiness. For a potter takes the raw, not quite dry clay pot gently with both hands, lest it should break. And after firing, he would repeatedly test it for flaws, such as cracks or splits, and use it only if it is well baked. And he would tap it again and again, and only a sound one would stand the test. In the same way, only a sound person, one with excellent qualities, would reach the path and fruit of arahantship. In that past life, the reproach of the Bodhisattva was fruitful and brought Ananda, the ascetic, to the Brahma realms. So it was also fruitful this time in their final existence, because Ananda accepted the criticism happily, was content with it, took it to heart, followed it until he attained to the total destruction of suffering. Okay, so the next reading, not next week Bhante Dhamma Gavesi will come and give a talk. But a week after that, we will continue with the next chapter, the Buddha's Attendant. Okay, so I hope that was useful.
Yes, very much. Sounds good.
Great, I'm glad that was useful. Any other questions or?
Thank you very much, Mei. Do you know what Reverend Dhamma Gavesi is going to talk about next week?
He hasn't shared the topic yet, but usually it will be announced the day before or 2 days before. Usually.
No problem. Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay. All right, so let us share some merit together. I'm just going to share the screen. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Share merits. Okay, let us share merits together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in, for asking questions, and also for sharing the different contents in the chat. That's awesome. And I would like to wish you all a very, very good week ahead. Good health and happiness always.
Thank you,
Thank
teacher. Wish you the same. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.